In your special, you talk about your friendship with RFK Jr.
Yes.
Are you really pals?
Well, we've gone out to dinner a few times. We're not like the greatest of friends, but I find he's a very interesting character.
Right.
And I think a lot of what he says is very interesting.
How do you approach the world this way? Because you the reason I love you so much is I think I told you, like, I think it was during the pandemic, like I was using you as a voice of reason because you really have such a great way of breaking through and looking at the world in ways that a lot of people maybe don't. You call bullshit on a lot of stuff. But where does the bullshit stop? Yeah. Like, where does breaking through the traditional bullshit stop? And then now we're into new bullshit. You know what I mean? And I use RFK Jr. as like that example. It's like he's saying stuff that's like, we have a lot of shit in our food and we have a lot of stuff. And then he gets to this other spot where you're like, well, wait a minute.
I think that the way I approach it is when I do my show, I look at the news and I try to find what's funny about it. And often what's funny about it is what's absurd and crazy, where something doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. And I think there's a lot of RFK that makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of things that don't make a ton of sense, right? Yeah. Like his crusade against poppers seems odd. It seems odd. Like, I don't think that's why kids are fat, right? Or like touting that like beef tallow French fries at Steak and Shake are a great... Like, to me, it's like, no, it's shut down Steak and Shake. Use the military to close Steak and Shake. It's not like, hey, in one of the, it's just like American fast food using beef tallow in the fries as a, what interests me about him is that he has been saying a lot of the same things for a very long time. People that say the same things for a long time interest me because they're like out there on an island screaming. Yeah. And then eventually a boat lands on it with people and they start listening. And then you have to analyze why that's happening. And I think a lot of people felt like during the pandemic that public health had become fused with politics in this weird way that people felt very uncomfortable with. And I think that they were looking for a viewpoint outside of the mainstream. And I think RFK is this interesting guy. He's a Kennedy, but he has this voice. Like he has this thing. And so it makes him this over the top character. And he's a guy that was like a hero of liberals for a long time because he was going at polluters. Right. This was RFK's entire thing. It was like going at polluters. And then vaccines became his main thing. But as I understand it, like for the majority of his career, he did a lot of like environmental activism and stuff like that. Yeah. And then this thing about vaccines, whereas I'm no doctor, I'm not a biologist, and I don't really know how effective these things work. I got the COVID vaccine, and then I got COVID like 4 times. Not an ideal product. You know what I mean? Like in the most like generous understanding of it, not an ideal. Like would have loved to get it 2 times after the vaccine, not 4 or whatever it is, 3 or 4. So it's like I feel like a lot of people were just distrustful of that. So when I look at a guy like RFK, I have not done any research about vaccines and autism. I don't plan to. Right. That's not how I'm going to spend my day. So if you're listening to my podcast to get a real answer as to whether vaccines cause autism, you should not listen. Right. If you want to listen to that covered as a story by a comedian, then I'll do that. Right. But I'm not doing the research in the lab. And I'm also I don't have children. It's not an issue to me that is affecting me. Right. So I haven't even done like a ton of research into that issue. Yeah. Because that's the big issue that comes up when it comes to him. Yeah. And everybody goes, well, what about what he says about vaccines and autism? And I go, I cover what he says. He believes what he says. Right. He truly believes it. Yeah. And that's where now why does he believe it? Is it cynical or is it a deeply held belief? Well, the reason I look at him as an interesting, he's been saying the same thing for a long time. Right. And it could be kooky, because sometimes he does do stuff where it's like, he'll say like the microwave gives you AIDS or something.
Yeah.
And it seems to not.
Yeah.
Right? Like it seems to not.
Right.
So there is there is that thing where it's like, I think it's like, I don't think comedians swayed the election. I think they lost to this guy twice. I think it was very easy to blame Joe Rogan and Theo Von. I think it's very easy to blame podcasters. I get it.
He definitely had bromentum.
He had bromentum, but also it's like if you lose twice running a wildly unpopular candidate from the, middle of the party. You didn't really run Bernie. You didn't run a disruptor. You ran kind of an establishment status quo candidate both times, who's relatively unpopular, not super likable. This one was a little less articulate than Hillary. And this one emerged after an octogenarian guy who you said was okay came out in a debate and seemed like he had passed on.
Right.
So I feel like there's a lot of like introspection that needed to be done, and they didn't do any of it. And then you just said, well, these guys with podcasts,
right?
I can't believe it. So I think it's like, I think people overstate our influence. Certainly mine. I mean, and nobody really overstates mine. They're not writing articles about me. They write articles more about the guys with bigger platforms.
Yeah.
My show's listened to by a lot of interesting people.
Yeah.
Like that'll reach out to me and go, I found this really funny. And that surprises me. And I go, good. But I never bought that thing. I just don't buy into that like we're super influential.
Right. I think there's definitely influence.
There's probably influence for sure.
I mean, Joe's is powerful.
Is his show bigger than mine? Statistic. I mean, look it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I got to be honest with you. The numbers are, no, I'm kidding. Yes, he is more influential than the rest of us. He has the biggest media platform in the country. Yeah. But by the way, you know who's also influential? Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is influential. A lot of mega celebrities with massive social media followings also are influential, right? Like Beyonce's influential. So you had a huge, amount of celebrities come out and listen, Joe's full, he's an influential guy and he's got a show that lots of people listen to. But on the other side, you have a ton of mega famous people with social media followings, 100 million people. Yeah. 150 million people. Taylor Swift sold more tickets probably than anyone else in history. And she's coming out and going, vote for Kamala. So I just feel like I'm sure there's a certain degree of influence, but there's this whole idea of like, are you using your influence responsibly? And I think that's an unfair burden to put on someone who has a podcast.
It just became popular.
Yeah, it's just like, listen, if someone's going to sit there and have a show where they bring people on and have conversations with them, everyone has the opportunity to do that show. And the people that don't do that show can't complain. Right. I agree. You might go, well, Joe wasn't as hard on Trump as he should have been. That's a critique. But he's having a conversation. And here's the reality. If Kamala came on and he had a conversation with her, there would have been people going, he wasn't hard enough on her. Because that's the way it works. You're never going to be hard enough on people. We had, Vance came on our show. We immediately emailed Tim Walz and went, hey, the vice president reached out to come on. Do you want to come on? No response. I just reached out to Bernie Sanders, who I agree with a lot of what he says. Yeah. And I said, would you like to come on the show? I'll fly to you. No, they don't want to come on. Really? Gavin Newsom doesn't want to come on. They don't want to come on. So the reality is it's a little tiring to keep getting blamed when you offer and then they go, well, let's say it is a hostile environment for Democrats on these shows. Right. Putin, President Xi, right. You're not going to go with Theo Von? Right. That's crazy. That's insane. That's insane that you're not going to go on these shows. I would never I never yelled at anyone on my show. I've never yelled at any I'm not going to yell at Bernie Sanders. I agree with a lot of what Bernie Sanders says. Right. I think he's full of integrity. He's probably a really good guy.
Yeah, and the thing that's pretty obvious, because it's all comedians, and nobody really is an expert.
Yeah, no.
if you are someone that wants to get your message across, go to a comedian's podcast, because they don't know a lot. And they're gonna kind of agree with you by the time you're going out the door, because you're the last guy to give them information.
I have no like agenda in terms of like when somebody comes on, I would ask questions and I go like, what do we think about this? What do you think about that? Yeah. And they would answer. And I think the reality is it's not the job of any of us to get these people elected.
Right.
It's not the job of like, you got to go to people and make your case, and you don't have to do any of these shows.
We're fun.
Yeah.
And if you come on and you say something about tariffs, if you say, Tim, I'm going to explain what tariffs are, and they start doing it, a quarter way through, you're thinking about lunch.
Right.
And you're
a quarter, that's a generous amount of time.
And you're nodding along, and at the end, you're like, I guess so.
Yeah, right? At the end of the day, none of us know anything. Here's the real problem with life.
Yeah.
No one knows anything.
Yeah.
They don't really know that much either.
Right.
We're all just kind of saying, this could work. We're doing comedy. They're doing a version of it where you like throwing premises out.
Yeah.
They're just kind of going like, maybe you go to downtown LA and you go, this is tough. How do you fix this?
Yeah.
No one really knows.
Yeah.
There's ideas. Well, we'll build housing in the desert. All right. Well, we'll build skyscrapers, put them in there. Okay. Well, no one has a crystal ball and nobody knows.
Yeah.
So everybody's just kind of dancing around going, does that sound good?
Yeah.
It's just a game of, does that sound good? Right. As long as I've been alive, I've heard that politicians come out and they go, strong families. Yeah, I like that, Jobs, that's a good one. Schools, education. People nod in the crowd. People start nodding in the crowd like, oh, yes, education. We forgot about that. That's an important one, isn't it? So it's kind of just like, I don't know. I'm no expert in tariffs. I'm no expert in vaccines.
Right.
I just look at the world and I go, what to me is funny and crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And do you have a Carlin-esque view of, hey, I'm just going to watch this place go down? Or are you remember like Carlin got to a point where he was like, I don't care anymore.
Well, he was brilliant. He was a genius. So I wouldn't ever, I'm not saying.
I mean that worldview of.
I think to do my show, the way that I do it. Doug Stanhope had a great quote once. People go, "Why don't you care about politics anymore?" He goes, "Remember when I cared and how little it did." I love that quote because he's like, "Remember back when I cared and how little that mattered." I have to do my show. What I find the funniest, and I got to cover things the way that I find them to be interesting and funny.
Yeah.
What happens to America is going to be out of my control. It really is. It's actually going to be out of most of our control. I know that doesn't sound great because people want to believe that they're flying the plane.
That they can,
I think that you have a lot of tech, our phones have changed more of our lives than any president. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the things that are going to end up changing our life are not from the realm of politics. Politics dominates every conversation right now.
Yeah.
But what people pay far less attention to is tech, is the business world, climate, all these things, right?
Yeah.
That are changing the way that we live in ways culturally that I think are probably more dramatic than politics.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not a nihilist where I'm not going to, I'm not like, let's have a military junta to take over and start killing people.
Right.
Unless they're the people I want killed. So, I mean, if we could square that before it happens. But so there's a line and a limit to all of but I just don't think moralizing isn't funny and it's not interesting. Going on my show and going, like there's this guy who killed himself in the Hamptons. And when you looked at the thing, half of the comments were divided between people that were angry that there were rich people that existed.
Yes.
Okay. And then people that felt really bad for his wife and child. And then those people were fighting with each other. The I hate rich people were fighting with. And my take on it was, I'm mad that he killed himself because the Hamptons, just like Aspen or Palm Beach or Greenwich, Connecticut, was not built by giving up on the scam. you go till the end.
Right.
If you're a scammer, you keep fighting.
Right.
Because that's what built this country. This country's not built by people who say, well, I'm out of here. Times are tough. You go further down. And that to me was the most interesting and funniest way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I'd approach it from a moral position, number one, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
I don't know this guy. I don't know his wife.
Right.
I don't know
Nothing.
I don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
So I have to just judge it as con man in Hamptons kills himself.
Right.
And the funniest angle for me, or the most interesting angle, is like, no, you don't give up. You keep going. There are people right now that were dancing on Jeffrey Epstein's yacht. They're fine. You know why? They don't stop lying. There's nothing less American to me than getting honest late in life. There's nothing less American. It is the least American thing you can do. The deathbed confession.
Right.
It's the least American thing you could do. Lie more on this. Tell a story on the deathbed that implicates other people before you go.
Yeah, I think you should run for president.